We're talking college sports in the Deep South, where we talk about this stuff pretty much all year round. And college football is king, but we love basketball as well. Once again, it's K-Stu the GOAT for Vernon Speak Sports, mostly talking about Auburn football and basketball and the rest of the SEC. Want to give a shout out to my fearless and true gang, War Eagle. Chuma Okeke back in February hit a three-pointer with 26 seconds left in the ball game against Georgia, which led to a 78-75 victory. But who would have thought that that would have led to an 11-game winning streak for the Auburn Tigers leading into the Elite Eight? Now, prior to that, things were really looking shaky for the Auburn Tigers. If you look at this stretch between January and the particular game against Georgia, Auburn going 8-7, including several double-digit losses during that time and 2 losses to Kentucky during that stretch. It had, pretty much everyone surrounding the Auburn basketball program thinking that this was a basketball team that probably wasn't even going to make the tournament, probably going to, vie for an NIT spot, which would have been very unfortunate considering the talent on this team. But because of the turnaround that started with that 3-point shot against against Georgia, Auburn has had all but an improbable run, including beating Tennessee twice. Tennessee was projected to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Also, beating a very feisty New Mexico team in the first round, beating iconic Kansas in the second round, 89-75, and now with the defeat of North Carolina, arguably one of the most iconic teams in the NCAA. But then, you have to think about it. Going into this ball game, everyone knew that North Carolina epitomized fundamentals, balance. They shoot the ball very well. They play very well on defense. They're very sound on the boards, and all of those things proved to be true. Their inside game was absolutely amazing. They had a pretty good showing all the way up to the second half. Auburn was actually up 41-39. And in uncharacteristic fashion, Auburn kind of changed some narratives about how they typically approach the game, because going up to halftime, Auburn, most of their points were scored on the inside. 24 of the 41 points that Auburn had scored was scored on the inside around the basket. And that's something that Auburn hasn't been typically comfortable with. And for that stat to be prevalent really said a lot about the potential of Auburn's outcome in this particular ball game. And also, when you look at this game statistically, Auburn was able to close the rebound gap. As a matter of fact, for the first time all season, the gap was kind of respectable. North Carolina finished the game with 40 rebounds, Auburn with 36. But a key stat was the fact that Auburn was able to even the defensive rebounds, and that played a huge role down the stretch as Auburn was able to pull away from this particular ball game against North Carolina, who really lived and died basically off of the idea of using their balance to get other teams off balance. And one thing you can notice, even with the posture of the Auburn basketball players, they didn't feel that you could look at them and tell they didn't feel this was an upset win. They felt like this is a team that they expected to beat. They didn't play like a team who had that anxiety of, a team that has to play above their heads to actually win a ball game. And I was very impressed with the poise of Jared Harper and Bryce Brown, and especially Chuma Okeke, who unfortunately went down with the injury. Still waiting on the reports to see if he will be available for the game in Kansas City against the Elite Eight game in Kansas City against Kentucky. Having an absolutely phenomenal ball game. Now, for something that kind of glared out at me, Austin Wiley still doesn't seem like he's comfortable, at least when it comes to handling the basketball yet. He seems like he's very uncomfortable with his footwork. He seems like he's still battling some sort of injury, because he's been very, very largely ineffective, especially when it comes to catching the ball in the paint and turning around and shooting the basketball. That's something that we definitely want to look out for. And a lot of things that people may not account for is that Auburn statistically was amazing in this ball game. 54% shooting from the field, 45% shooting from 3-point land. All right. Also, what was a huge stat for the Auburn Tigers is the bench scoring. Auburn's bench accounted for 40 unreasonable points in this ball game, and it's against North Carolina, who only had 21 points of bench production. That's something that's going to stick out when you talk about winning a big-time game like this. Auburn really played a very poised ball game. They didn't get themselves, anxious when they got down, say 5 or 6 or maybe 8. They didn't do what they did in that middle stretch, that middle stretch in the season when they went 8-7. A lot of errant shots, a lot of shots that put the team in really, really, uncomfortable positions as far as being able to sustain and win certain games, which is why, you account for the Kentucky loss 80-53, or maybe the Ole Miss loss by double digits. So Auburn has really done an incredible job of finding out basically who they want to be as a team, finding out what works, finding out where their chemistry lies, finding out when to slow things down, finding out when to take that shot, putting their team in a position to potentially make rebounds or be able to kick it back out on those long shots. Because you can tell in this game, they were positioned a lot better on those long 3-point shots when they happen. So hats off to the Auburn Tigers, who will participate in the Elite Eight portion of the tournament for the first time since 1986 when they had Chuck Person. This is a huge deal for the Auburn Tiger family, period. Shows that perception of winning on a high level, defeating adversity, because that was an adverse time between January and February where Auburn went 8-7, and there was questions as to whether, like I said before, not talking about winning an SEC tournament championship. We're talking about just even being in the NCAA tournament at that point. So has to be a euphoric feeling for Bruce Pearl, who really had his team thoroughly prepared for this particular game. Once again, congratulations to the Auburn Tigers. 97-80 against, and I'm still reflecting on the Kansas game. 97-80 over iconic North Carolina. Once again, as K-Stu the Goats want to give a shout out to the SEC tournament champions and now Elite Eight participant Auburn Tigers. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Comment. We got a lot of commentary that goes on up underneath the videos. Like it if you want to. Dislike it if you don't like it. War Eagle.